Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's me. It's your host, Alex, and this is the Tap In Tap Up podcast. I don't know why I thought that would be a good... First of all, why did I think I was going to deliver the full thought before laughing? Secondly, why did I think of that? I didn't know how to, enter in. You know when, you don't speak in a group chat for, several months and you don't know how to, reintroduce yourself, so you, send a meme or something? That was my meme that I was sending to the group chat of our community, our podcast. Hi, guys. It is me. It is your host, Alex, just Alex today. And if you're new to Tap In, Tap Out, new to the show, new to the premise, in this podcast, we tap into discussions around mental wellness, spirituality, and culture, and tap out of the patterns that no longer serve us. Amen. How are we doing? How have we been? I have been gone for, I've been here. I just haven't been producing podcasts. But I've been here, okay? Missing y'all. I'm not supposed to laugh. I was actually genuine. I have been missing y'all. But summer is now ending. And how do we feel? Are we relieved? How do we feel about it getting colder soon? I'm not a fan. I officially started my new grad program for therapy. And yes, I had to move for that. And so it was very tumultuous few weeks, just naturally, I think, because it is still in the pepperoni pizza. And so just having to figure out the ins and outs of putting together a new place and what that looks like, and just being somewhere new and not knowing anybody virtually, and just figuring things out. And so I'm in my I'm ending my second week of school as of this recording, and it's been interesting. Definitely an adjustment. I mean, it's not a huge adjustment. It's still definitely school, but it definitely is a lot more applied conversations and a lot of applied work. And so it's no longer memorization. Is kind of okay, this stuff actually kind of matters in a way that I'm gonna kind of carry this throughout my career in a more serious way. I think undergrad obviously has a sense of that as well, but grad school, at least for this program, has a bigger sense that what you look at, what we talk about, it should be taken in with a little bit more integrity and a little bit more intentionality because of the nature of the work that I want to get into, which is taking care of people well and holding space for people well. And so I'm quickly realizing that, being somebody in a helping profession doesn't mean that and I didn't think this really, but doesn't mean that you really get paid to be a good friend to somebody, but get paid for it. That's not the case. I'm realizing very quickly that there's a whole different positioning you have to be when it comes to following ethics and following different wellness practices that we don't really think about when we want to be a good friend to somebody or just help someone out, when it's your profession, there's a whole other angle you have to take with why you're approaching people and why they approach you. So anyway, that's been an adjustment to realize that yes, even though I have a lot of good skills when it comes to building good friendships and parse out ideas, it's a different beast when it comes to professionally having to look out for people's best interests, basically. So I actually did a really good thorough update for the newsletter this week. I guess last week as of this recording. The newsletter is, I've had questions about it. The newsletter is essentially a free Patreon thing. And so I just use a newsletter because it's the easiest way to get people's contact information so I can send them exclusive content. And so basically you sign up, the link in my bio or the link in the podcast description, and every other week I send this email with, some weeks it's writing, some last week it was an actual vlog, so I posted it on YouTube, but I made the video unlisted, so you can only get the video if you have the newsletter. And so it was really fun. We actually I think collectively we enjoy the newsletter vlogs a little bit more than maybe the writing, even though the writing was also nice. I prefer the vlogs, and so I might do more of those. Definitely do more of those in the future. And that way we're able to like comment under the video. That was really awesome to see and stuff. And so I love the little community we're building that we have, that we enjoy each other. And so I'm definitely looking forward to doing more newsletter videos. And I have done some like, so the newsletter is Animal Crossing themed. It's the Just Crossing newsletter. And so it's Animal Crossing themed. So I already have some videos up about Animal Crossing. And the theme of the newsletter is decorated around Animal Crossing. However, it was nice to do more like just personal update style vlog. That was really nice. So if you sign up now, even though it's not going to come out until the week after this podcast is out, usually on a Wednesday, but when you sign up, you get an email automatically that has a link to the playlist of all the older newsletter videos. So you will get a link to the vlog and the Animal Crossing stuff. And whatever is more to come, it gets added as soon as I make the new video. So anyway, just a little behind the scenes. But if you're interested in the newsletter and hearing that update, it was really good. I was able to sit down and really go through moving, the grad school, some personal mental health stuff, and it was really thorough. And why repeat it when it's free and you can go sign up? So the link's in the bio of this podcast. Last episode, if you can remember, it was in, I think, July. Maybe, was it July? Was it start of August? I made sure it was like end of July, like really beginning of August, because I had a feeling I was gonna not be able to do any episodes in August. So I do apologize if you really were missing me and I was MIA. But anyway, last episode, we actually had Benjamin on the podcast. He is an amazing artist, creative person in Bahamas, locally, Nassau. And the episode was called Lean On We. And really, I think I mentioned this a lot of times during the episode, but it really left me with a lot to think about. And I think low-key, it was weird that it did happen right before my break, because it gave me that month to like process what came up for me. And really what I got most out of that conversation was like reintroducing this idea to me that like community is really integral to like the way that we think about holistic wellness and holistic healing and just a maintenance of ourselves. Like I think Tap In Tap Out at its core is about being the best version of us, right? And a lot of the content in the podcast is geared towards that internal work, and it's really important. And we've touched on, you know, that we need people in our lives who like who are there for us, you know, and just a really basic idea about community. But I do think that in the future, I'd love to explore the idea more of what it means to really have to have community and friendship and relationship in the way that we think about being our best selves. You know, I think being our best selves can be a very isolating idea. It's like, oh, I'm the greatest and I'm on this island alone. Like self-help and all this stuff really shouldn't leave us alone. It should really bring us to the best people that we need in our lives too, right? And so I don't know, it really made me think a lot about how it would look like if we really leaned on each other and didn't lean off when we felt like we didn't need people anymore. You know, like what does it look like to live with people and love people well? And so it really got me thinking, and I have a lot of ideas on how we can do more of those kinds of conversations, especially because I love talking to guests and stuff. So that in itself has been this indirect way that we can't do it by ourselves. But I'd like to be more direct with like talking about community and talking about people and how to deal with people, you know? So look forward to that, I guess. But that really got me very excited, but also made me very thoughtful about the work that we're doing and the work that I want to do for the rest of the year and all that stuff. So yeah. No inbox questions this week because I didn't ask anybody for questions, but usually at all times, whether we're taking a break, whether I'm recording, posting, you can always send me questions. These can be, you know, advice questions, music questions, pop culture questions, life questions, whatever the case may be. Once again, I am not a licensed professional, but I can tell you what I would do. So that's just for the legality of the conversation. So we're clear. But if you have a question, you can email howtoshima@gmail.com, or you can DM me on Instagram or Twitter at JustAlexToday, and I'll be sure to make a note of it. I'd let you know too if I do answer it on the podcast. I'm not gonna leave you in the dark. But yeah, because I don't have any hard, like, any questions this week, I tend to talk about music every now and again just to keep y'all updated with what I'm listening to and what I have going on over here in this head of mine. And so I really felt bad because the summer actually wasn't that dry in terms of music. I was actually very surprised. I was really worried it was going to be like, I don't know, not as fruitful as other years. I think for sure, like, there's been a decline in, like, the amount of new releases, but I don't think it's been that bad, is what I'm trying to say. So I do have some music just to recap my summer playlist and summer tracks. Recently, Cleo Soul released a album called Mother, and it is such a vibe. I love music that's like vibey and like just soulful, and like it just gives me peace. Like, I don't even need to like pay attention. I just like having that music behind the work, me working or me getting things done or cooking. Like, it's a beautiful album, really pretty, just such a nice voice. It's great. If you're into that, like, I wouldn't call it even dainty, just like soulful but like almost ethereal sound, like Cleo Soul is your girl. Also, I've really been on my Mariah the Scientist kick lately. She's an amazing songwriter. I actually am very interested in talking to her. Like, to be honest, like, if anybody knows her, let me know. But I really enjoy her music, and I really enjoy her writing, and it's very unique, and I love her voice. She released an album this summer, but she also had all the music I didn't know about. So I just found out about her maybe a few months ago, but I've been hooked. I just love her music, and I think she's gonna be really, really big soon. So yeah. Once again, I really want to talk to her. Like more than normal. I want to like have a conversation about her music and her life. But anyway, I digress. Snow Allegra released an album this summer as well. Temporary Highs in the Violet Skies. Once again, an album that I can just play. I don't have to worry about Snow Allegra disrupting my workflow. Like, I can just put her on, and not in a way that's offensive to like it's not forgettable, but it's just so easy to put her music on for me and just clean my room, put music on and just read through some papers, or like, it just is so ethereal, and like, I just love that kind of music right now. Between Snow Allegra, Cleo Soul, like Jhené Aiko, y'all know me and Jhené Aiko. Y'all know. And so any kind of music like that, I just live. That's me right now. Like, that is literally what I need right now. And so I love to play her album. Few albums I love to put on and just play. It's a very short list, but this album is on that list officially. It is so good. I would highlight some songs, but honestly, the whole thing, I just think it, as a body of work, it's just collectively great. Lastly, I did want to mention Drake's new album, Certified Lover Boy. I'm not gonna mention too much because this is actually the stage for the platform, let me say, for the tap out later in the episode. However, I did want to talk about it before that. If you didn't know, somehow Drake released an album on Friday last week. It's Friday today as I'm recording, but as you hear it, it's Friday last week. Twitter's going up about it. I don't want to really talk about this, but I did see some controversy around him using an R. Kelly sample in one of his songs, and to that, I don't want to contribute to the conversation. I think it's really it's complex. I don't think it's like a black and white answer or response. I think it's complicated when we think about people who do bad things, and like, I think cancel culture is really it's complicated. Like, I don't know, I don't want to get into it at all, but I think cancel culture really maybe needs a a reframing, and I do actually talk about this in the tap outs. I should probably stop. But it isn't about the sampling in the tap out, so I can talk about this now. But I don't know. I feel like we need to reframe what it means to like think about cancel culture and accountability among people. And like, am I gonna like today like delete the one song I downloaded from CLB because of the R. Kelly sample? No, like that's not the song that I liked from it. So I'm not gonna be the. I'm not gonna. Maybe tomorrow I will, but today I'm not really like. And that's just me. You can come for me if that's like wrong, but like I don't know. I think it's a lot more complicated than just like, oh, Drake's done or Drake's not done or Drake was completely fine doing it. I think both ways. There's not a clear answer of like 100% he should have done that, or he definitely shouldn't have. You know, I do think there is some nuance to the conversation. But overall, objectively, that song aside, I do think it's very well produced. I do think that he's definitely a great lyricist. If you know me, rap isn't really my like strongest flavor, but I dabble when I need to. It's really mostly from a like cultural consumption perspective. I want to be in the know, so like that's why I listen to these kind of stuff when I feel like it. But usually if I want to skip, I just want to listen to it. That's for like 85% of the rap industry. I just don't listen to it. But Drake is in that 15% of people that I'll play the song, I'll play it through. And so I played it through this morning and I had some thoughts actually about it. And so I shared it in the tap out. So you stay tuned for that. But I did want to mention CLB now because I was listening to the album this morning, and I saw the song come up about Yeba's heartbreak, and I was like, oh, like I didn't see the features yet, so I was like, oh my gosh, imagine someone else named Yeba who he knows or something, or like one of his like old things. Come to find out, it's literally Yeba, the artist. I'm like, Alex, why are you so stupid? But it's literally Yeba singing. I was so proud. Me, like I know her. If you guys know her, please tell her I'm proud. But I love Yeba. I think she's fantastic. I found out about her a few years ago, and I follow her low key. Like I go back every few months, see what she's up to. I love Yeba. And I think the song is literally just her singing. It's not even Drake rapping on it. And so I was like, oh my gosh, imagine. I was really, I don't know, like that secondhand joy you get when you see someone that you love doing well. I was like, oh my God, that is so amazing. And it's only her and Thames as female artists. And he also used a Nicki, was it a voice note? I don't know what it was. Probably a video, Queen Radio or something she did. And I think he put that in one of his songs. But yeah, only Yeba and Thames have like female feature credit on the album, and we love that. And so, how do you feel about the album? I'm happy to see him using his platform. Obviously, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? Or a biotic relationship, but like, I'm happy that he's like extending his hand to smaller artists or artists who don't have as much reach, and giving them platform to like collaborate. So that was amazing, in my opinion. Again, I am not gonna really get into the whole sampling controversy. Like, I guess I already did, but I don't think it's up to me. I don't really have a horse in the race. Today, maybe tomorrow, like I said, maybe next week, but not today. But we do get into CLB in a different way in the tap out. So stay tuned for that. This week we have an interview. We sat down with, I guess I did it. Let me stop acting like we did it together. But I sat down with Hanifah. She is not a stranger to the show. She was in episode 3, I believe. And we talk about imposter syndrome because we are both starting new programs, actually. And she wrote an article a few years ago when she did her first master's. And I remembered it when I was thinking about doing this episode, and I reached out to her, and then we talked, and then I figured we should do an episode together. So it was great. I think it was really good. It's really solid. We love Hanifah here, obviously. She has her own podcast, Behind Closed Doors. So yeah, I don't want to waste any more time. So we're gonna get into this podcast, get into this episode, this interview. Hope you guys enjoy. That's all I have to say. All right, it is time for the tap in, and this week we are doing a bit of a check-in. I feel like we've been gone for a while, and I want to come back strong, but also honest. And so we're gonna be talking about imposter syndrome this week, something that I personally have a lot of history with. And it's kind of the time now for like new beginnings, whether you're like starting school, continuing school, new jobs, like transition periods. I think we're all kind of experiencing maybe not imposter syndrome, but transitions and stuff. And I feel like this is a really common thing that can come up. And so who better to ask than a mental health advocate herself? She's beauty, she's grace, she's Hanifah. Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here.
She is not a stranger to the Tap In Tap Out podcast. She was featured on episode 3. You guys should listen to it if you haven't already. What are you doing?
Honestly, that was a very, very good topic. I think it was about purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Love that conversation.
A lot of stuff, because I think we also played that game, and so we had a lot of
Oh yes, we're not really
and
strangers. Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes.
it was really awesome. I'm gonna let Hanifah introduce herself, and then we're gonna get into how she's doing and how we're doing. So
Okay, hello everyone. As Alex said, my name is Hanifah Griffith, MA, because I have my master's in applied sociology.
Period.
I'm currently going back to Howard to get my MSW so I can be a licensed social worker. So my goal at the end is to have my own mental health practice. I don't know what I'll be focusing on. I'm leaning towards like financial trauma. That's a topic that has been introduced to me. So I'm looking into that a little bit. As Alex also said, I'm a mental health advocate. Maybe it might pop up in this conversation, who knows, about how I ended up being a mental health advocate. I don't know what else to say. I'm an anime lover. I love to watch Rick and Morty. That's my favorite show. And I love to read. And that's me.
Love that. So how have you been doing lately, Hanifah?
Ooh. I'm in a very weird space because I think I forgot how to do school just a little bit, or how to do school properly because we've been online for so long, and to now come in person, it's like, ooh, wow, I really used to do all this, huh? Also starting school in a HBCU as opposed to being in 2 PWIs. So that's also a transition that I've been thinking about. Like, is my Blackness enough? Like, do I really belong here? Like, these people are spitting articles, citing dates with periods and years. And I'm just like, wait a minute, let's calm down. So yeah, I've been really struggling with that, and also trying to figure out how to do life and be in grad school, because this degree is so much different from my last degrees because it's more of a hands-on approach. So I go every Tuesdays and Fridays to a middle school, and I am their social worker, and I work alongside another social worker as well. So today I had my first case, like I had my first session with a client, and I just kept on and I was just like, wow, this is very surreal, to think that I just one day decided, well, not one day, I knew I always wanted to do this, but one day I just decided during the pandemic, I was like, why am I wasting my time doing something that I don't like or I just settled for? So to see how I went from doing applied sociology to now in the field that I really think is meant for me, and now having my first quote unquote client today, it was just like, wow. So it's, this whole transition has been filled with ups and downs,
Yeah.
side to side, twirl arounds. So it's just been everywhere, to be honest. But how about you? How have you been, Alex?
Very similar place. I feel so grateful for like chances that I took on myself. And like it paying off. I just talked about this in my newsletter this week, and so I'm like, it's in the top of my head, but like I'm so grateful for like the past version of me that was so like timid, but like did what he could to like set the best foot forward for like the next version of me to like pick up the baton, you know? And I'm like so grateful that like I decided to follow through with myself and my own decisions. But at the same time, now that I'm here starting my new program and stuff, I feel very like not like lost, but I feel so almost overwhelmed by the opportunity of it all, you know? And there is this fear in me of like, am I enough for like what I'm asking for, you know, and what I think I
If
want?
you don't speak on it, let's go.
And I guess it also kind of ties into the conversation today, but like, it's just a lot of feelings because of like, and it's, I think the big pot of feelings of happiness and, you know, but then this fear I actually think we talked about this in our episode, the fear of success, you know, and how like sometimes it's worse than the fear of failure. Um, it's like, you know, you said the sky's the limit, but like, I don't know if I could fly, if that makes sense, you know, like,
Yes, it does.
and so I think this kind of feeds into this imposter syndrome that I've been kind of feeling is on the horizon for me. And I didn't want to project that onto you. And so I wanted to ask, I think at some point you have experienced it because I read an article of yours a few days ago. You wrote in your previous grad program. But if you don't mind, could you just maybe break down in your opinion what imposter syndrome is and how you know it to be?
Okay, so my understanding of imposter syndrome is like being at a table and feeling as though people are going to rip off your mask and be like, you actually don't belong here. Like, you are not qualified to be here. You thought you could have had a seat on this table, but you don't. Like, this is not your seat. That's what it is. Or that's how I think about imposter syndrome. And what do you say for the second party and like how has it affected me?
Yeah, like what's your relationship to it?
Whew, child. Imposter syndrome and I are old friends, you know. I tried to kick him out, I tried to kick her out, and then they just keep coming back for more. If you are obsessed with me, just say that. But imposter syndrome, I feel like I've always had it. Or I should say I always had it when starting something new. But the times that I actually remember saying like, oh, this is imposter syndrome is when I started my first graduate program at University of Central Florida. And I wrote about this in the article as well, where I had my first class and the professor was like, yeah, we're going to go around and we're going to talk about or introduce ourselves. You can say anything you want, but just make sure to say your name, where you come from. So the table was like a semicircle, and we started on the opposite end of me. So one person goes and they're listing all their accomplishments, and I'm like, whoa, okay, so clearly I was wasting my time in undergrad. Cool, bet. The second person goes, and I'm talking about accomplishments after accomplishments after accomplishments, like who's in McNair scholarship and who did this, and I'm like, wow, like I'm looking around like, yo, sure, I'm supposed to be here, like anybody gonna tell them like I'm not really supposed to be here? And then finally it came to me and I realized, like I even said this in my blog too, like my body language was even suggesting that I didn't even think I should have been here. And then the professor was like, go ahead. And I said my name. My presentation was like 0.2 seconds long because at that time I hadn't done anything. So yeah, I remember him asking me to say, and I didn't really have anything to say. And that night I went home and I cried on my way home opened my apartment door and I was sending my professor an email to ask him what he saw in me to write my letter of recommendation. Because at that point, I really thought that I wasn't enough. Like I did not belong at that table. And I was thinking to myself, out of all the applicants that you possibly had for this program, because I know it's just not 7 of us, why did you choose me to be here amongst all these other people who have 5+ years of experience or 5+ articles or 5+ whatever? So yeah, I emailed my professor and I was like, hey, can you basically reaffirm me? Because right now I'm very close to dropping out. I was even thinking of calling my dad to tell him, let's pack it up, let's wrap this up, it's over. And he sent me my letter of recommendation. And when I read it, I was like, wow. I think at that point it kind of clicked too, where it's just like, we have to understand that there's a different definition of success, or like different definition of, is success the word I want to use? I'll use it for now. There's different definitions of success. And when he was like saying all the things and all the reasons why I deserve to be there, I mean, yes, of course, it's academics as well, but he basically wrote about a time that I stood up for a person in a class. He wrote about a time where it was more than just me and academics. It was like me as a whole. And seeing how I knew him for 4 years and he saw all these things about me, I was like, wow, okay, I actually do deserve here. Like I deserve this more than anybody else. And then, as I touched on a little bit before about my second relationship with imposter syndrome, this more had to deal with my social identifier as my social identifier of race. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. I was thinking to myself, so I go to the Howard University,
Period.
HU, and it was so crazy because I think this happened yesterday. We had a class called Social Work in the Black Perspective, and we were basically talking about how the Black perspective fits into social work. And if you don't know what that means, it's like, how do these principles that have laid the foundation for Howard social work, and I think Howard in general as well, pave the way in social work itself, and how we can bring that Black perspective into social work. And this girl was like rattling off articles about like this topic that we were having. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, am I Black? Like, am I really Black? Like, is my Blackness worth being here amongst these other people? So that's where my imposter syndrome came in, being in a PWI. So yeah, as I said before, imposter syndrome and I have a very tight-knit relationship. So that was a lot, but yes.
No, that was great. You brought up a really good point. And we can talk about this more later, but when it comes to like combating that imposter syndrome, a big part of that for me has been like having people around me who can like speak through that, you know, and like remember who you are for you, like when you forget. And so they can remind you like, this is who you are, you know. And I think it gets more difficult when, for me, I realize sometimes to like get ahead of myself, sometimes I'll just create a version of me that isn't really like fully me, you know, like I'll like create the mask that I think that people might take off, you know. So even if they do, it really wasn't me, you know, even like, and so I feel like in my first classes last week, I forgot what I even said to the people, but I tried to be funny to like knock it off. That's like my like scare tactic. I'll like just try to like be humorous to like distract people from like what I'm actually saying. And so I think it worked in my head. And then I was walking, like we had a little break in between. I was walking and I didn't know where the class was again. So I had to like, you kind of just walk around and figure out the room number or whatever. So I was doing that. And I saw this girl following me who was in my class. I was like, oh, she's not trying to find the room because I don't know where I'm going. But I turned around. I felt bad for her because I'm like, I'm the blind eating the blind at this point. And so I was like, oh, by the way, like I don't really know where I'm going. And she was like, oh, you look so confident. And I was like, I was about to like enter into that, but I was like, I just laughed it off. But I'm like, girl, if only you knew how much of this was a production. Like I have to like
Like
run with
lights,
it, you
camera,
know?
action, like
Right.
girl.
Y'all like to know I'm lost. Like as far as you know, I know exactly where the room is. And I think about how like harmful that is, like in a deeper sense, because like I think that's protecting me from something when really like where is the danger? You know, like no one in that room ever expressed they were gonna be against me, or no one ever expressed that they were ever like out to get me, or you know, but it's all like this mental gymnastics that I've created of like, you know, they're gonna like kick me out of this program because I stutter, or because like I'm not like what they want from me. But I don't know what they want from me. They want people that show up, you know, and I've shown up, you know. I had a story of imposter syndrome I wanted to share as I was preparing.
My gosh, before you go on to that,
Mm-hmm.
how do you feel? So you said just now that you create the mask.
Yes.
Oh, yes, like you create the production, you create the mask. How do you feel about what you said? Juxtapose to that phrase that people always tell us, fake it till you make it.
I actually told her that. I think I told her like, girl, I fake it till I make it. Like, I think that's how I like told her. And I think in that moment I was assessing that phrase and how like I have used that a lot in my, and I actually the story will also help with that because I like basically I was in high school and the culture of the high school, I don't think it's uncommon, but basically if you were doing well, you know, academically, the administrators like to use you for like, you know, talks, and not even talks, but like reading the scripture, you know, at assembly, or like doing some kind of like poetry or something for like a service or something, you know? And so I really was in a weird place academically growing up because I was, this is not to like flex, I promise you, but I was like, I tended to be in like the top class of most subjects, but I really wasn't like the best of the best. I would call myself the worst of the best. So like I'd be the bottom of the class, but I'm in the top class. And so that like 80, 85 average, like I was very consistent. And so I was never like below the cutoff to like move below the top class. And I think they always needed somebody to like compare to like the really smart people who were doing like straight A's. So I was always the person that was like the good average student that was being compared to like the excelling like valedictorian, whatever. Anyway, did a lot for me psychologically. We're not gonna go there today. So one year, the most important year back then was like the national exams. That's how you get your like scholarships for college and stuff. And I blew it out the water. I was like, I don't know what happened in me, but something snapped, and I was like, I'm gonna show them, like, because I was never called on to do speaking engagements. Like, I never was that person, so I wasn't really trained to do that kind of stuff. That was what the smart people who they want to portray more and be the trophies of the school. But this one year, I like really killed it. And I think I was like the highest scoring male of that grade, and so the administrators were shook. And so they had to use me because, you know, they put you on the posters and stuff or whatever. And so I remember the first thing they asked me to do was this Christmas service. I had to read or write like literally 3 minutes maybe of like what Christmas means to me. This is senior year, right? Easy stuff. And so I had to practice in front of the administrator before I did it. And I literally feel like an imposter. Like I've never felt it as strongly as that moment in my whole life. And so I show up, and this is just the pre thing. This isn't even the real thing. And so I show up, and like I'm with, you know, the smart girl and the smart guy who always does stuff. They're like comfortable. They're like surprised to see me. You know, they like raise their eyebrows. At least in my head, right? I'm creating this illusion that like, oh, look at them, you know. And so we practice. I think I do poorly. Like this, now I say this whole thing could be how I interpreted everything that happened to me, right? Like it really couldn't have maybe not have been this intense, but I remember this being so like judgmental, and like they regretted even asking me, but it was too late. Like all these things I said to myself was already before I even went up there and did it, you know? And so it's the day of the service, and it's the entire school from like kindergarten to like senior year. And so everybody's there, it's packed. And in the front row, usually there's the principal of the school and this board of trustees type people, and they all had to be white men. You would think it's Caribbean, but they won't be, but hello. It's global.
It's
And so
global.
it's a global condition.
International.
It's a
Come
global
on.
condition.
Come
And so
on.
there was this and the principal was a Black woman, and then she was next to like six to eight white men, doing their thing. And so this is just the context. And so I am literally, I'm petrified. I've never felt more scared in my entire life. And so I go up and I start reading. I'm literally feeling the like emotions as I say this. I start reading and I'm blacking out. Like I don't really know what I'm saying. I'm just kind of reading words and it's in a mic and the sound's echoing. I'm gone mentally. But through the darkness, I hear a voice and I look down and it's the principal looking at me and she's telling me to start over. She's like, hey, start over. Start over. And when I register, I was like, I just felt like the building was falling apart. Like it just felt like the entire world was like ending. And so I start over and I read through this and I make it through. And when I sit down, my body was so hot. It was like I was about to explode. And the anxiety, I've never felt anxiety that bad ever since that day. My head was swinging, like I was like literally sitting like bunched up because I felt so destroyed. And I remember going to and that was right before school was over. So I remember going back to my classroom and they're like, Alex, because you can't sit with your friends, you sit in the front or whatever. So I finally go back to my friends and they're like, oh, you did fine, Alex. Like, congratulations. Mind you, I'm like I'm like having a hot flash. I can't even talk to them. I'm like, y'all, that was so bad. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, my body, I was physically in pain, because I'm like, I suck, and the woman told me, and they're like, we didn't hear her. And I was like, but I did, and I'm like freaking out. And it worries me just how physically painful that psychological interaction could have been, right? Like it's crazy how something that was fully inside of me manifested into something that literally caused me pain on the outside, And so when we talk about imposter syndrome and like it is kind of a buzzword lately, but at the same time, I think it's really it's affecting people, And I think that like when we talk about like mental health advocacy and what it means to like be there for people, it's like not only looking out for like the parts that they show you and the parts they want you to care about, but like really reaching out and like checking on your people, because you don't really know what they're going through or what they think they're going through and how that's really hurting them, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Wow, Alex. Wow. I don't even I'm speechless. I'm trying to remember what you said. Yes, how you said oh man, how did you word it? You worded it so perfectly. I wish I wrote it down. You like how the psychological affects the physical.
Yeah, the outside of you.
And that just reminded me, like, as you said it, like it zapped me into like a conversation I had with my mom. And she always told me when I was younger, stress kills. And I know this is like off topic to what the imposter syndrome topic is, but I was just thinking about that and an incident that happened over the summer. And my friend's mom had a physical reaction to a psychological event that was also influenced by more physical interaction. And it just makes me think like when we think about traumatic experiences, we think that it can only manifest within our head or that it's like a mental battle that we have. But really and truly, it's all parts of ourselves fighting this traumatic experience. Because I've definitely been there before where it's like, I think even like if I have to get up and talk in public, the first thing that I notice is the top of my ears always get hot.
I also felt that.
Yeah, like it goes from my ears to like my whole body to like me thinking like, shit, am I sick? And it just, before you know it, your whole body is like encompassed in this emotion. And you try to like tell yourself, okay, breathe through it. But then I can't even breathe. And I'm just like, whoa, how am I even supposed to move on or like get out of this emotion right now? And it's just crazy how you said it too. When people talk about imposter syndrome, now that it's being a buzzword, I think nobody goes deep into what it does to us. Like, we all have an understanding of what it is, but nobody talks about what it does or how it can present itself. Because I don't even think imposter syndrome, like Barack Obama, I'm pretty sure when it was the inauguration time, like he was like, y'all sure you want to run a country? Like,
yes.
y'all sure? Like, double check. Like, y'all really sure? You know, like, it can be that grandiose or that big, or it could even be you having to start your new job and you're just like, oh, y'all sure y'all want me? Like, let's reevaluate, you know? And I don't think, like, how people talk about big T, little T when they talk about trauma. Somebody talk about big imposter IS, yeah, and small IS, because I think that's a real thing.
Yeah. And like, going off of that, I feel like thinking about maybe even the self-sabotage that happens because of that, like there could be this physical reaction, but also there's like a behavior reaction too, to like imagining like being so, and I've done it before, like being so caught up in like the possibility of being caught, you don't even go for it, you know? And how many missed opportunities we have because we don't go for it. And I think thinking very relevant is this podcast. Like, I remember like I was supposed to record on a certain day for episode 1. I was like, I've got everything ready, bought a little microphone, like I was so ready. And I sat down, and that thing you mentioned about like the hot ears and stuff came, and I'm like, literally episode 1 is like no gas, it's just me. And I was like, who am I was nervous about the potential audience, and I'm like, first of all, bold of me to assume people would listen to the show. And so, but just the thought of an imagined audience, once I announce this, once I talk about this, like, because I wasn't gonna announce it unless I knew I had some material to announce. And so this is like pre-knowing that it was even out, people knew about it. Really, maybe like my one friend knew, a couple of friends maybe knew. But I could easily told them like, never mind, y'all, like something came up. But I remember like not doing it that day at all. I couldn't do it. Sorry, but I couldn't do it that day. And I thought that was gonna be it. I was like, okay, well, I can use it for something. I can maybe like sell this to someone, or I don't know, like someone need a microphone. But then I was in the shower the next day, and I was like, you know what, Alex, like, what do you have to lose? You it really isn't a huge deal to try, you know, like. And so I tried it, and then it ended up, kind of working out. But like, I just think about so many times that I didn't do that in the shower, like so many times that I built up to like apply to something, or creatively even like wanting to create something and then choosing to not do it because of the imposed or the forthcoming imposter syndrome that didn't want to feel,
You said so many things just now. But I wanted to go back a little bit to your story in high school, because something that you said made me remember what I wanted to say. Isn't it crazy too how our perception of things is not equal to the reality or equal to the thing that actually happened? Because like when you were talking about how you went back to your class and you're like, y'all didn't hear that, and they're like, what do you mean, like you were fine? And I wonder how many times both of us, or even people who are listening, how many times like we had a perception of what happened, and then somebody has the actual reality of what happened, and how those two things never never what's what I'm looking for, like they never match up or like mirror themselves. And then it's just like, how many games our mind will play on us to tell us that we do not belong in a certain space, or that that people are going to come and shine a light on us and be like, you don't belong here, and insisting on us taking off our mask. And it's like, that's never going to happen. Like, I promise you, whoever's listening to this episode, that is never going to happen, because 100% there is a reason why you are at that table, or you have that opportunity that you currently have. Because I'm a firm believer in, if it was meant for you, always be for you, and you don't miss your opportunities. So you being at that table is no mistake or no like whoopsie daisy. But yeah, just thinking about how many times like our mind tell us stories.
Yes.
And how we feed into those stories and then how we internalize those stories and then create narratives for ourselves based on that story. And then another thing that you said too, and I was like, ooh, Alex, was like starting your podcast. I remember that feeling as well, because if anybody goes back to the first podcast episode in May 2019, I did the same thing. I remember I didn't have much money, but I was like, you know what? I dreamt about me having a podcast, so I'm buying this mic for myself. so I was in New York at the time, so I hopped on a train, hopped on a bus, walked to a Best Buy that was in Lord knows where, and I got my mic, and I was like, oh yes, I'm finally gonna do it. Like I am on the road. But then I remember I came back to my aunt's apartment in Brooklyn. And I'm sharing the room with my two other cousins, but they weren't there at the time. It was only her and I. And she stepped out for a moment. I was like, okay, this is my perfect time. Like nobody's here. I'm gonna just do a quick little introduction episode and post it. Alex, I have never breathed so hard in my life. I was huffing and puffing. My heart rate was through the roof. I was like, whoa, what's going on? Like, girl, are you okay? You know? And I think I took probably like more than 10 tries because I kept on thinking to myself, like, girl, you are not meant to have a podcast. Podcasting is not for you. Leave it to the pros. And that was my, not first introduction, but that's also introduction to imposter syndrome I had. But then the same thing that you said too, like you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Right. And it's better to try and say, well, okay, I tried, I gave it my all, but it's not for me, you know? But it's like imposter syndrome sometimes, or the situations that we're in, sometimes doesn't end like that. Sometimes you go into a situation and then imposter syndrome whispers in your ears and you're like, you know what, that's actually true. Because that's definitely happened to me before, you know, where a situation happens and I listen to the imposter syndrome and I listen to the fear, and then I'm just like, oh, whoops, never mind. You know? So I've definitely been in both seats.
So I wanted to ask, just as we think about how intense and how damaging this can be, like, what are the steps that we, people, whoever, can take towards dismantling this idea of like imposter syndrome, and like, is there hope for us? You know, like as people who struggle to be confident, you know, and understand that like you said earlier, like we're supposed to be here, you know, we don't just win by chance. Like we're supposed to be in in things like the tables that we're at, you know. I don't have any ideas off the bat while I think myself.
The first thing that I thought about was affirmations. Like I feel like for me personally, what helps beat imposter syndrome is telling myself like, you got this, like little pep talk. Even if my anxiety is on 1,000 million quadrillion, I will still try to tell myself like, you got this. Even if I don't execute whatever it is to the best of my ability, I'll still tell myself like, you got this, like you are okay, you are safe, you are okay. I think that's like the best thing, or not even, no, let me not say best thing. Best thing for me to do. Yeah, because I'm not going to generalize. Best thing for me to do. And also for me as well, validation and seeking it from like actual genuine sources and not just somebody that you met like 5 days ago. Like me asking my professor, like he has probably like 5 years under his belt knowing me, you know, like he has seen me. Oh, that's actually crazy. Yeah. He has seen me growing from like a 17-year-old to a 21-year-old. Yeah. You know, like he has seen me, you know. So I knew going to him, he would have better insight. Not better insight, but he was able to portray myself back to me in a way that would have helped me get over what was happening. And cry that out.
That's
Cry
good.
it
Release
out,
it.
cry it. Yes, cry. Alex, I was just thinking about this because I was just thinking to myself, like, the whole of 2020, I think I only cried like twice. Like, I don't remember crying at all. And I was thinking to myself, that was like, I was choking myself, like I was holding myself back. But now I cry all the time. I cried in class yesterday. I mean, I was crying. Carol, just call me that, because that's who I am now. Like, if somebody tugs on my heart a little bit, I'm crying. I am crying. But yeah, cry that out, because it's not, like, I've realized now it's not good to hold your emotions in. It is not good. As we said before, it manifests. Like, and this is like going to a different topic too, like people who would like to self-proclaim like, I'm healed, like, baby, no, just, it's okay, cry.
Yeah.
You know, like, it, like, then again, I can't judge, I can't assume if somebody is healed or not, but I feel like if somebody's continuously telling others that they are healed, more than likely, yes, more than likely you're protective and you have a little more that you need to dig into. And just, yeah, release and cry.
Yeah, I love
because
that.
Yeah, don't hold it in.
Yeah, I think that I'm gonna say what I think, but I think the crying, I think, ties really well to like having self-compassion, you know, and like accepting and loving where you're at. Because I think the first thing that comes to my mind, one of the first things that comes to my mind when I have that imposter feeling is like I shouldn't even be feeling this, you know, like, or like kind of like regretting something. Like, what am I regretting? You know, like, but I think that crying is like the space you need to like accept yourself, you know, and tied to that and tied to like your affirmation point. For me, I think it's come down to building like self-trust. Because it's one thing, and I think we need it. I don't think we can ever substitute it, but I do think along with needing trustworthy people in your life to like speak into your life, like I think that should also be helping you to like build that self-trust with yourself, because you've known yourself the longest, you know?
Yeah.
And we really should be the last person doubting what we can do, because, you know,
like, we know, like,
right, like,
we know who
I've
we
known
are.
homegirl for like 7 years, but I've known me since birth, you know?
Come on.
And so with that, I feel like building that self-trust is so important, and we don't think about that being an intentional practice. We think we're like it's automatic, you know? But I've had to learn that, no, I have to even not even like set goals for myself, would be like, hey, I trust you to practice yoga before the end of the week. And then I practice yoga. And then I'm like, when I do it, I'm like, Alex, good job. You practiced yoga this week, you know? And I'm building that relationship with myself that isn't implied, but it is vocal, it's honest. Just like if it's an actual person, like, you know, like it's me, but I'm talking to like myself, you know? And the affirmation work is that similar, like, mirror talk that we kind of think is kind of cheesy, but it actually is doing something very important, which is creating and stamping that relationship into your own brain. So like, you don't need to go outside of yourself to get that confirmation that you're good, you know? And we still need to, and I think we should want to have that from other people, but I think at our best, like, it can come from ourselves first, you know? And then those small steps could lead into bigger ways to trust yourself. Like that little yoga thing will turn into like, you know, Alex, I trust you if I sign this scholarship paper to like go to grad school in the next 5 years. I trust you to like follow up with that and go to class that day and don't not go, or quit, or like do another career instead, you know, and like trusting a future version of yourself that you will look out for yourself, you know. And having that faith in yourself is so important, because sometimes we don't even put that out there and we just let whatever happen. And so then when that comes, we're like, ooh, I could do X, Y, and Z, or A, B, and C. I'm gonna just do something else, you know? But like, remembering who you were, telling you what they want, it's like, oh, I kind of owe it to them to like see this through, you know? And that long-term trust building is what I'm really trying to get at, because when I walk in that room of strangers who have nary know a thing about me, like I'm gonna think back to that person who knows me better than anybody else, which is myself,
Alex, if you don't speak on it, because wow, I don't know, maybe that was definitely meant for me. I know I am Cinderella, because that message, God said, I'm going to speak through Alex because you are clearly not trusting yourself. Oh. And that's so crazy. Oh, I needed to hear that, Alex. You don't understand. I needed to hear that because it's so true what you said. Like, we think self-trust is just an innate thing that we're born with. Like, we're born and then we think to ourselves, or maybe not even think to ourselves, or we just assume that we will always have our best interests at heart. Yes. Or we assume that we are always, what's the word I want to use? Gonna look out for ourselves. I mean, that goes hand in hand with what I said before, but it's like, Alex, wow, it's making me think about all the times I have not trusted myself, and how in those moments I relied on how other people perceive me to feed into me so I can do what I need to do. And how many times like I've not allowed myself or asked myself, like, how do you feel? Or are you going to stand up for yourself? Because at the end of the day it's you and you. And it's like, how do I expect to get the things in life if I don't, as you said too, speak to myself and tell myself, like, not even you need to, but you're promising yourself that you're going to do this by the end of the week, so you're going to do it. Because think about all the times like we made plans with somebody, or we expect somebody to do something, and how disappointed we feel after that doesn't happen. And then it's like, that's the same thing with us. Like, if we don't do it, we slip into this realm of self-hate. And we don't even know it sometimes, because you start thinking to yourself, and I do this all the time, you start thinking to yourself, like, you should have done that, or you could have done that. That shoulda, coulda, woulda, would def that. It's like a thing that we always do, because we think about other people and we say that to them as well. Like, you should have been there time. You could have done this better. And it's like, it's just like a cyclical cycle. Like the things that we expect and want out of people are the things that we need and want for ourselves in order to get to where we need to get. And so many times I think too, like for myself, because I can only talk about myself, I rely, like, the Libra scale is very off. Like I am relying too much on people and not enough on myself. Like I feel as though I'm a gambler, but I'm not betting on myself. Like, who doesn't bet on themselves? Because you, as you said, you the best. You know what you're capable of. You know when to say no, when to say yes, the bounds of your limitations or lack thereof. Like, who you are. And to not tap in, no pun intended, to not tap in with who you are is just like, it's like mind-blowing, because I feel as though I have not been tapping in to who I am. Wow.
Imagine me listening to myself sometimes. Wow. Imagine me like applying information that's like in my head, because I'm here like, you wouldn't think that I experience any imposter syndrome, but it's literally, like you said earlier, like, we're good friends, me and imposter syndrome. But anyway, as we wrap up this segment, do you have anything, like, any lasting thoughts you want to give to people before we
go? What lasting thoughts? Oh man, I would just have to reiterate, bet on yourself. Because I feel like that is the word of today. Because you got you better than anybody else got you. You know what you want. You know how you can get there. You know what you need to do to get there. And you know that you're meant to be there. So it's just like, and I see how crazy it just leads back to imposter syndrome. Right. Like, I feel like maybe that's the key to unlocking it too. Like, if you trust in yourself so much, like so much. Like you pour into yourself, nobody can tell you otherwise. And no feeling that comes towards you, it's just like roll on your shoulder. I mean, of course, it might impact you a little bit, but you have built your armor so thick that is not going to make you get red A's, you know, it's gonna just like roll off. So I think like, oh my God, I think we need to build our armor of self-trust.
That's good.
Yes, build our armor of self-trust. Ooh, that's not a word. Don't know what is.
Ooh, well, this was great excavating in nature. Hope you all got something out of this conversation. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we get back, we're gonna do the tap out. I have a topic. I've left Hanifah in the dark halfway, so it should be a good time. We'll take a quick break and we get back. We'll do the tap out. We're taking a quick break to do our small business shout out. This week I asked Hanifah for a recommendation for a small business, and she gave me Image Nailed It. That's IMIJ.NAILDIT on Instagram. They're DMV based. Specifically, they're based in Washington, but they service the DMV. And as you can imagine, it's nails. And so I feel like people are going out more, whether that's for work, some traveling, hopefully safely. If you're interested, you can check out Instagram. You can book them via that page. I'm going to link it in the description. But as always, even out of the pandemic, even though we're still in the pepperoni pizza, but well after this is over, hopefully soon, it is always a good time to support a small business. It's Black women owned. You gotta love it. So it'll be in the description for you to go check out. Yeah, support small businesses where you can. All right, it's time for the tap out. I'm still with Hanifah. This week, usually I ask my guests to bring me something that they want to tap out of. The tap out is basically a segment where we think about any patterns, bad habits. If you're into like shadow work, it's kind of what we're talking about, like things that we need to like stop doing, uninstall in the program, if that makes sense. But this week, it's music related. This weekend, Drake released his album, Certified Lover Boy, CLB. Today is a Friday that we're recording this, and so it's Twitter's going nuts because it's like,
yes, they are
breaking it down, doing whatever. And so I was gonna probably do this for the beginning of the show when I talk about a little bit of music sometimes, but I decided to save this for the tap out itself. Off the bat, this is a tap out for me. But I think after listening to the album this morning, it stirred up a lot of thoughts in me about something that maybe he wasn't even trying to talk about. But this might be really random, why I'm connecting this to like Drake. But I think it's just a reflection of like the time that we're in. And he's kind of just like a vessel for my healing, if that makes sense. And so I took this screenshot of a description that Drake posted of the album description, basically. And he said, a combination of toxic masculinity and acceptance of truth, which is inevitably heartbreaking. So listening to this album this morning, I started from the top to the bottom. And I think even this week, I don't know why yet. At that time, I didn't know why, but when I looked at the cover art with the pregnant woman, my mouth dropped. I was like, what?
Same.
I was like, okay, choices. But I didn't really know where to land yet with it. So I was actually very interested and invested in listening to the album to figure out what it was about. And I think even just the title of the album intrigued my interest as well, just thinking about like what is he like getting at, because I had some ideas about it, but I didn't want to say anything until I actually heard the music. So music wise, I do believe Drake is like an amazing lyricist. I think he's one of my favorite like samplers. I like what he chooses most of the time. I think I mean, like in a Drake album, I'm not gonna be like crazy about it, but like I will have like that one song that's like, oh my gosh, that's I'll be
That's
down
my
with it.
song.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm not like a stan or anything, but like I truly respect his work, respect his craft, blah blah blah. So in thinking about the title of the album, Certified Lover Boy, and juxtaposed to this cover of these women, it's obviously it's like talking about the contrast between like how women receive him and the actual fruit of that, you know?
Mm.
And again, I'm not singling him out because, like, first of all, who am I? I'm not anybody. But like, I think he's simply a reflection of the culture. So that's why I'm using this example. It was really perfect how this album reflected something that's been bothering me for a very long time. So historically, I haven't really been that interested in. I've been a lot less interested in hip hop and rap, and I really didn't know why until today. And so as I've grown up, I've like gotten a better ear for it, and so I can like literally sit down and play a Drake album that didn't used to happen, you know, in high school. But now it's like I can do that, and I feel like, oh, I'm mature now, whatever. But listening it today, I'm like, wow, Drake is so honest about like the person that he is, you know, and he's so honest about like what he's not necessarily doing to people, but how he relates himself to the women that he's with and vice versa, and his children and like all these different things. And so I'm saying this to say that it was a little bit jarring for me to realize like how complicit we are as a culture in like certified lover boy-ness, if this makes sense. And so I have this quote from, I think the song is Poppy's Back or
Poppy's Home.
Poppy's Home, yes.
Yep.
And it reads, I remember that I told you I miss you. That was kind of like a mass text. I remember that I told you I loved you. That was really in the past tense. I remember that I told you I get you. Truth is that I get around. And it's like, it was hard for me because I'm like, no, this is why I didn't like this kind of music earlier, because I'm like, I didn't understand why people like listening to like people who cause harm to people, or like, you know, because what this is telling me is that, right, what this is telling me is that there's a part of him that's like producing a version of himself to get something that he wants from somebody, you know, and he's coming back around to say like, oh, by the way, that was kind of fake. That's A, B, C, and D down the road too, like, and he's coming back around and doing that, and it's like I realized that there's a part of me that growing up, one of the reasons why I think accepted hurt from people for so long is this tactic I would use, which is telling myself that they don't know what they're doing or didn't really understand what they did to me, you know, when really I was protecting myself from the fact that I think people actually are much more intentional about the things they do to people than I want to give them credit for, you know? And so I think I'm kind of calling people out about, I guess, life, but like, I am the kind of person to be like, oh, you hurt my feelings, but like, you didn't know that would hurt my feelings. You didn't know that, you know, like I kind of give them the benefit of the doubt, when really, I think I'm trying to protect my, I guess, idea of humanity, maybe in a deeper sense, but also like, it helps me believe that like, I'm not as like gullible as I can be, you know? And specifically, there was a situation that I was in many years ago when someone was taking advantage of me, and it was like long term, and people told me that because they saw it, and I was like, girl, what are you saying? Like, you just jealous, or like, mind your business, like, you know? And I think in the back of my head, I knew that, but like, I was okay with it. And I told myself, like, even if this is hurting me, like, they don't really know that, like, the impact they're having, you know, or like, I can't be responsible for that, or like, they don't know any better, you know, like, I'm taking the good with the bad. That's kind of how I treated it. And so come to find out, a year after, like, I stopped talking to this person, someone had come to me and told me that like they were in a room with them, and verbatim, this person told the person that told me that like they were taking advantage of me. And to hear that coming out of his mouth was so like jarring, because I'm like, I've spent so much time like spitting this idea that like they're just aloof and like, you know, we're all broken people. Like I will fail people. Like I've failed people. People will fail me. And so I think I've put so much impetus. I put so much stuff on like just life being hard, life being messy, when really like people are a lot more a lot more aware of their intentionality than like I would like to believe. And so the tap out this week is me spending less time trying to spin these narratives that people are aloof and confused and like, and don't know what they're doing to people. Like people, I think people honestly might be oblivious to the impact they cause people, but they are not oblivious most of the time to their intentions about it. You know, like, and this Drake album has shown me that, like, to be a certified lover boy, it is tested, it's tried and true. You know, like he's not just like a one and done kind of
person. Sealed and has been
like,
delivered.
And this album cover is proof of that. Like, it, just looking at if you look on Spotify, you know, it's sometimes the pictures move and all these women are like rubbing their stomachs, and I'm like thinking about just the imagery of that and just the meta-ness of it being a produced album, right? Like there's so much thought and intention into it and awareness. And I'm like, I'm writing something actually for a project that I want to release soon. But like in that writing, something I talk about is like, what does accountability look like in 2021? Like it's one thing for like someone to cheat on my test, right? But it's another thing for someone to tell someone that like they want to marry you, and then they end up, you have a baby, and then you leave, right? And I'm left with this baby, right? But it's on the same principle. Like we put trust in people, and then people redact that trust, you know, and that leaves us hurt. And it's like, it's crazy how an album like Drake's album can come out and we enjoy it, listen to it, love it, but still allow people to like hurt us, you know, and cause harm to us and leave us in the dark. And like, and it just really, and again, like I think it's not Drake. Drake is literally just an example, a reflection of like the culture we live in, where like we are so okay with people doing bad things to us, you know. And I wonder, like, I think that feeds into how loose and sometimes ridiculous cancel culture is, because we don't have great frameworks around what it means to hold people accountable, especially if we don't know them and if they're like celebrities. But even on a personal community level, we don't have great frameworks what it means to hold justice for ourselves and those around us, you know. And it really makes me wonder, like, what does it really mean to be accountable to ourselves and our friends? And is there a place where we can like move to be more honest with each other? But even before the actions happen, like, where's the integrity? You know, like, it's selfish, you know, like it just feels very selfish. And I wonder like how we can do a better job at that. But seeing that I can't control people, I know what I can do is do a better job at not being so gullible. And I know that I'm gullible on purpose. I know that about myself. Like, I know that there are times that I purposely will be gullible to save myself the trouble of having to really figure things out, you know? And I'm really just letting people do what they want to do to me. And that's being a doormat, and that's not a good. And so, does that make sense, Hanifah?
Yes, it does. I'm here. I'm listening. You're spitting facts. Like, wow, you are spitting fast, because I don't even know where to begin. Yes, Drake's whole certified lover boy and how it mirrors the times that we are in terms of, I think you said it was like his description is about toxic masculinity. And yeah, and it's just so crazy how it fits so snug and so perfect in the theme of 2021. Because I think like we've had a lot of instances of toxic masculinity. Like I'm trying to think. God, I know there has been some news that I've seen. I was like, oh, or maybe it's back home. I can't remember. But I feel like that too has become like, not a buzzword, but like a buzz action, or like a buzz. Like people are flocking to it, like toxic masculinity. They're like, where can I get it? Where can I buy some? Like, I want it right now. I feel like that is very on brand for what 2021 is. And then in terms of what you said about accountability and you not believing people are that aloof. Ooh, that, yes. And it's hard to say because, everybody thinks, not everybody thinks, but we would like to think that we are the best thing since sliced bread. But I've been there before. I've definitely done things and then think about it. I'm like, I knew what I was doing. Like, I knew what I was saying, and I knew the tone in which I was saying it, and I knew the impact it would have. And that's not like to say an excuse, but it's just like, you have to own up to these things that I'm learning now to do in 2021. Because before I was very much sweep it under the rug. Let's not think about it. Let's not see it. But now it's like, how do I want to say this? It is not ridiculous, but it's like, I'm going to use ridiculous. It's like ridiculous of me not to think about that and then apply that to myself. Because I don't know if this is like across the board for people in 2021, but there's so many things that have been risen from the ashes. Whether that's like authenticity or who we are meant to be, or how do we see ourselves? How do we want to be perceived? Like just walking more in our truths. But that also comes with understanding where you go wrong and like how you have a hand to play in the things that did go wrong. Because as they always say, it takes two hands to clap. Like it takes two hands to clap. And to think like if something happens between you and someone, that you can just step into this, not even toxic masculinity, but it's toxic ideology and thinking, and to just say like, oh, this person did this to me. It's like sometimes you have to be like, okay, how did I play into this whole situation as well? But that's just like what I am thinking about when you were talking about taking accountability and people being aloof, because I 100% agree. People know what they're doing. People know what they're doing. People know how you are feeling. People know because everybody feels and everybody goes through the same thing. So people know. So I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, but that was on my heart because I was listening and I was like, got to the end of the album, and I think the title of the last track is The Remorse. And I was like listening to it and I was like, such good lyrics, like such good in terms of like the creative expression of it. But I'm like, wow, this speaks to like a deep awareness and a deep understanding of like the things that we do. And like me, I know that I have that for myself. Like I know that I'm very intuitive and like aware, but somehow I permit other people to be these like, I don't know, like I give them the safe bets, but for me, I keep myself with the most, to the point where I'll take blame for people's actions on me, which is another whole conversation where I'll blame myself for things that people actively have done in their own will, but it's like, oh, I let you do that to me. No, like you also chose to do that to me, so yeah, that's a tap out this week. Felt pretty culturally relevant.
100%.
How'd I do it? But Hanifah, thank you so much for sitting with me today. This was fabulous.
I love this whole conversation. Thank you for having me. It was what I needed.
We needed. But can you tell the people, please, where they can find you, what you're doing, the podcast, all the things?
So just like Alex, I have a podcast as well. It's called Behind Closed Doors, which can be found on majority audio platforms. So that, Speaker, Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, I believe. It's called Behind Closed Doors by Hanifah Griffith. I guess if you want to follow me on Instagram to see when I do post, because I have taken a sabbatical, some might say. My Instagram name is Hanifah, so HAKNIFAH. EEFAHG. Hopefully I'll be back. I don't know. Sometimes it's like you have to step away from the things that mean most to you, even if that means stepping away from yourself sometimes, just to come back. Because I just feel like I started my podcast in 2019 when I just finished graduating, and I had this whole idea of what I wanted it to be. And now it's like times are changing. I am changing. I don't know if I still want to continue that same. I mean, of course, I'm going to still have the same premise of talking about mental health, but I think my interests are changing and my niche is changing. So I just want to, I guess, find me, learn more, and then come back a little stronger.
Yeah.
So
we're
yeah,
here for the journey. 100%.
We're here for the journey. Exactly.
I will have all Hanifah's links below. Please support her. This was great. So yeah, that was it.
That was it. That's on period.
Period. Thank you again to Hanifah for coming on the podcast. It was so good as always. If you guys want to support her, like I said in the interview, you can find her information below. That's all I have. I feel like this episode is long enough, and so if you guys want to sign up for that newsletter, it'll be in the description. If you have ideas for a small business you want to get promoted, questions for the podcast or for me, ideas for episodes, guest ideas, connections to Mariah the scientist or Ayaba that I could get an interview. Anything helpful, please send that my way via the email haroshima@gmail.com or just DM me. Truly, it's fine. My social media, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at JustAlexToday. Please rate and review the podcast 5 stars, please. 5 stars. Please, if you can, on Apple Podcasts, that would be great. You can also find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. It's fine. I'm so happy to be back, back and better, as we like to say. That's all I have for this episode. So if you guys liked it, let me know. Share with your friends. Do all the things. I love you. I missed you. I'm back. Hello. Have a good rest of your week.